Kia ora. Warm greetings from New Zealand. Good morning to you who are down under. Good afternoon to you who are up on the other side of the world. Good evening, wherever you are. Warm greetings and welcome to this final session of the 2023 World Conference. I'm Tracy Riley, and it's my pleasure today to introduce our panel. And we have James Kaufman, Francis Preckel, and Abdullah Aljughaiman, who are award-winning members of the World Council, recognized for their leadership in research, teaching, and creativity. And the panel today will be facilitated by my colleague Anis. And the conference topic, or the panel topic, is charting the course for the future, advancing our work in gifted education with equity and diversity. I think I'll turn it over to the panel now. I don't want to leave you waiting another minute. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending where each of you is located. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our esteemed guest speakers and participants from around the globe. It is a pleasure to have you join us for the keynote panel, WCGTC 2023 award-winning panelists charting the course, advancing gifted education with equity and diversity. I'm Anis Hroub. I'm an elected executive committee member at the WCGTC, and I'll be serving as a moderator today, as Tracy mentioned. So during this engaging panel session, we will explore visions, strategies, and steps necessary to propel the WCGTC's mission to advance gifted education globally, with strong emphasis on equity, diversity, and inclusion. We aim to foster a global network that ensures every gifted learner receives adequate support and opportunities. Again, our esteemed panel consists of 3 distinguished winners of the prestigious WCGTC Awards in Research, Leadership, and Creativity for 2023. Professor James Kaufman from University of Connecticut, USA, the recipient of the International Creativity Award, and Professor Francis Preckel from the University of Trier in Germany, the recipient of the International Award for Research. And we've got Dr. Abdullah Aljughaiman from King Faisal University, Saudi Arabia, the recipient of the Hari Paso International Award for Leadership in Gifted Education. During the panel, each panelist will be allocated 5 minutes to share his or her insights and respond to each question presented. So this format allows for dynamic and engaging discussion, with each speaker having the opportunity to provide his or her valuable perspectives within that given time frame. So just, a quick to know about more about the speakers. Dr. James Kaufman is a professor of education psychology at the Niag School of Education at the University of Connecticut. He has written or edited more than 50 books on creativity, including 2 books coming out in 2023, The Creativity Advantage and Lessons in Creativity from Musical Theater Characters. He won several international awards and has proposed a number of well-known creativity theories with his colleagues. Perhaps the best known is the 4C model of creativity, which outlines the developmental trajectory of creativity. And he co-founded 2 major journals, the Psychology of Aesthetic, Creativity, and Arts, and the Psychology of the Popular Media Culture. Also, our second speaker, Professor Francis Preckel. She's a full professor for gifted research and education at the Department of Psychology of the University of Trier, Germany. She earned her doctorate from the University of Münster and was director of the Counseling Center for the Gifted and Talented at Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich. And she won several awards in addition to her work with the identification and training the parents of gifted children. Dr. Abdullah Aljughaiman is a full professor at the Education College in King Faisal University, Saudi Arabia. He is currently a member of the Saudi Parliament and the president of the International Research Association for the Talent Development and Excellence. And he was the dean of the Research and Consulting Institute, the director of the National Research Center for Gifted and Creativity. Also, he was a dean, or maybe he's the dean of the Teachers College at the King Faisal University, Saudi Arabia. So today we'll be focusing on three themes. The first one is about advancing gifted education with equity and diversity. The second about identifying gifted individuals from diverse backgrounds and marginalized communities. And the third is about creating inclusive education systems and collaborative partnerships. So we'll have open discussion about those themes, and then we'll be having also open discussion with the participants, the audience, the gifted education community after having this open discussion. So the first question to start with, if maybe we'll start with Dr. James Kaufman. So, and we'll be then having some discussion also with Francis and with Abdullah. The first one's, in your experience, what are some effective strategies or approaches that have been successful in identifying and supporting gifted individuals from diverse backgrounds and marginalized communities?
It will probably be unsurprising, but I'm going to point to creativity as one wonderful way. Certainly, we already use creativity for gifted admissions, particularly the Torrance tests. What I think is very exciting for the future is the possibility of what we can do as our assessments continue to advance as technology allows. So one thing particularly exciting about creativity is that you just don't see the same type of differences that you see in most other measures. So if you look at measures of intelligence or academic achievement, there are a number of group differences that are not necessarily what we'd like to see. And it's stuff that people have certainly worked on improving. But what people tend to not talk about is that if you look at creativity measures, you just don't see differences, that everybody has the same potential to be creative, that it's much less related to things like socioeconomic status and things like that. And that with the advances that we've been making, we're not that far off from having really good automatic assessments of creative writing. And I think down the road, creativity in a wide variety of domains. And I think that this type of kind of multi-battery assessment can really identify a much wider array of gifted students. Every time we've included creativity in these type of batteries of assessments for selection, diversity goes up. And yet with no cost, as in there's no downside to this other than the resources it has taken to measure this. And I think we're not that far off from this being really possible to do much more economically and viably. And I think that these type of advances will greatly help increase the diversity and the wide array of gifted children, which I think is going to be really kind of amazing.
Great. So the focus on creativity, Dr. Francis, is not actually separable from gifted education. Along the same line, this is actually within the subject of gifted education. So based on your experience, what are the most successful approaches for the identification of the gifted in your area, in Germany, maybe in Europe, and from your experience, elsewhere?
Okay. So, in my experience, it's of paramount importance, and actually it gains in importance that we embed strategies for the identification and support of gifted students within a broader strategy to promote the potential of students in general. So to bring a focus on potential, talent development perspective into general education. And so I think school general education actually therefore is the best place to identify more diverse gifted students, because at these places in K-12 you have the greatest chance to reach all children. And the prerequisite to do this is an appropriate training of educators and professionals, and also the right attitude to understand children's gift and potential as one dimension of diversity. And it's easy to say, I know, but it's very hard to achieve, because education systems around the world are under pressure. They often lack resources such as professional training, sufficient teachers, teaching materials, or even the technical equipment. Technologies plays a more decisive role in the future. Computer-based assessment, formative assessment, and stuff like this. So in such a situation where an educational system is under pressure, potential is easily neglected. So either children who do well are given less attention, assuming they do not need special support or guidance or instruction. We had this in various talks during this conference. Instruction is focused on predefined learning goals or collective learning goals that try to close down achievement gaps, but frequently this is at the expense of stronger learners. And so stronger learners are also rarely encouraged to use their strengths. In school, they are more focused towards their weaknesses. And even students who do not perform well at first glance, this is important, they're often overlooked because for these students, potential is not expected by teachers and therefore not identified. So I think the main starting point for me to gain a better identification and promotion strategies for a diverse student body in gifted education is the attitude of educators and teachers. Already 10 years ago, Dai and Chen, they published in Gifted Child Quarterly, they published a paper on paradigms in gifted education, and they posed 4 very simple basic questions. So what compromises giftedness? Why should we engage in fostering the gifted? Who are the gifted? And why should we engage in fostering gifts, the societal outcomes, and what are the means? How should they be fostered? And I have very good experiences with these 4 questions. If you discuss this with other educators, researchers, parents, teachers, that really helps to clarify some basic understandings. And this is very important because there are still so many misconceptions about gifted people. And it's very important to discuss your attitudes and your basic understandings, because what's still not understood well is that potentials are multidimensional. So there is no one set of characteristics that defines talent in all domains. So there are a lot of different abilities, creativity, intelligence, but also investment traits, self-concept, a growth mindset, opportunities. So it's a set of factors that comes into play. Multidimensional, partly domain specific, and they develop dynamically. So it's a misunderstanding to use a one-time identification and assume that this is valid for the rest of the life of a child. But gifts can show up lately, they can disappear. So if we talk about fostering and identification, we need to adjust our strategies to this dynamic, malleable character of giftedness. And I think therefore it's a good starting point to enhance identification and fostering of more diverse and or also marginalized student population is to start to discuss the basic questions. And if you agree, then you can start to work in, for example, strategic research practice partnerships and develop for your understanding of giftedness, develop identification material, fostering means. And this is not something that can be done by teachers alone or educators. it's in the responsibility of research to offer support in this material for identification and fostering.
Yeah, great. So you mentioned many times the word dynamic, which is interesting. So the assessment to be dynamic, and this is very well known approach. It's not maybe new anymore.
No.
It's used in many countries, and it proved its I would say validity or at least effectiveness across different cultures. So I'll move to Professor Abdullah Juhaiman. From your experience, in Saudi Arabia and the Arab world, knowing about what's going on and what you could recommend in that sense to the kind of identification could be taken as protocol. Um, and then, of course, after supporting the gifted. So, starting with the identification, how it goes, what are your recommendations, and based on what it's decided that we need to undertake certain identification protocol.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all of you. It's almost midnight now here. So
Yeah,
so I'm telling this. If you see me nodding, you know why. Yeah, it's
I understood.
yeah okay. The notion of equity, equality, diversity, and inclusion widely accepted by the gifted community and education policymakers in most of the countries. However, the practice in the ground is still way behind even the leading countries in this field. When we talk about diversity, sometimes we just talk about specific things, while it's more inclusive: culture, ethnic, class, economic status, gender, sexual orientation, language, and linguistics, and things like this. Also, we could include also class experience in my experience, my group and I have conducted several research in this regard, especially in the Arabian Gulf countries, and found out that diversity is not being considered at all in practice, really. Disadvantage and price exceptional students are not mentioned at all in the process of identification in most cases that we examine. Somewhat there was an assumption that if we do not exclude anyone, we would have fair identification procedure. This is the notion that most people think about, that if we do not exclude anyone, so we have fair procedure. We found out that the private schools have more nominated students than any other public schools, which means that high-income students might have favor in this regard. Also, the representation of low-income students and students who live in the settlements in the talent development services was less than 0.05%. While the population of this group almost 11%. So in general, education are being conducted in a macro level, not in a micro level. So when we do this, we usually miss the disadvantaged gifted students. We found out that the priority is to have enough students for the gifted services in the country. So the people who are working in the administration, they have several programs, and they need, let's say, 100 or 1,000, 2,000 students. So they would like to fill in these programs would give the students, whoever comes, no matter the representation of the student. So why is that? I think the identification of high ability learners from disadvantaged student population is significantly impacted by inaccurate perceptions, let's say, held by teachers and schools. The main issue of not having a fair representation of all diverse students was due to teachers and parents' perceptions, since most systems around the world nominating students start with nomination of teachers or parents. So lack of also we found that lack of sensitive tools that can help to identify these groups of the students is also problematic. Overall, I could say based on the research finding, we could do better if we make the main focus turns into having a fair and a complete system of identification, not just having assessment tools.
I think there's maybe little background. I think maybe, I'm not sure if it's from your room, Dr. Abdullah, but I think maybe we managed that. Okay. Can you hear me right now? I think you're muted. Okay, so I think we'll try to fix, the volume a little bit.
Now I'm okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. In short, I could say that the main focus, if we could do better if we turn our focus into having a fair and complete system of identification, not just having assessment tools. We should also give more concrete examples of how we could deal with the diversity, not just preaching about diversity. I really believe that we should apply also the quota approach to have from each groups in our programs, and do more general teachers training in giftedness in this regard especially. Also, not just teachers, parents should be included in the training too. And I agree with my colleagues when she said that we need to do more on dynamic assessments too. It's very important for these groups, for identification these groups and gifted education to use dynamic assessments. This is in short. I might explain or go further later on.
Right. Thank you very much. I think maybe during your discussion, if you can maybe try to see why we've got some echo from your side, it would be very helpful, I think, in your room. I think maybe some of the audience, they were hearing some echo, but I think it's much better right now. Just before ending this theme and then moving to another one, I'll come back to you, James, regarding creativity, because it's a bit more specific and it's a bit challenging in its identification. It's not easy to have some standardized assessment for the identification of the creativity, and as we know, creativity, it comes in different kinds. So that's when it comes to identification. From your own perspective, what's your recommendation? What we could do actually at school to identify those who are creative, and who are the creative people according to your theory to be identified.
Certainly, being able to look at creative works that the children have produced throughout the year on their own timetable on topics of interest to them would be ideal. In that most of the times when we assess creativity, it's okay, we have this 30 minutes or an hour, and the assessments that I personally think tend to have not just the most face validity, but the most validity in general are the ones that encompass actual production. And it means either having the students select their favorite things or the teachers pick out things that they think are creative throughout the year. And I think in general, the more that we can again look at as much as possible authentic creative work that is valuable to the student. And again, we tend to just look at like what is the most creative. I mean, I would love to see, and again, we don't even have a whole lot of commercial creativity rating scales. We have a couple, but the range of assessments is much smaller. But to have, for example, looking at the kids who are the most passionate about creativity, the most excited about creativity, even if they don't have the highest level of skills, looking at those levels of motivation, of passion, interest, this type of more of a portfolio type assessment where the scoring is always the key issue. But if down the road we can use AI to mimic expert level raters, the way that, for example, in a Mable's consensual assessment technique, where you get people to look at these products and kind of evaluate them, comparing them to each other. Right now, you can't do that in a large scale. But if the scoring can be handled by AI, we're not there yet, but we're pretty close. I think a lot of this would become feasible.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move the second theme with my second question. Actually, after you'll be, talking about the three questions and three themes, we'll come back with having maybe some more of general and specific discussion coming from the audience as well. So my second question, and Dr. Francis, we can start with you, which is, it's about we have lots of challenges. Maybe facing the field of the gifted education. So how can we address the unique challenges faced by gifted learners in both the global north and the south regions? And what are some opportunities for collaboration and knowledge sharing between these important regions?
Yeah, it's an important and broad question. So actually, it's something I value very much about the World Council, that it is truly international, that is very diverse, and thereby making it possible to globally connect and exchange ideas and knowledge. And this is one important and one first step. One challenge, however, I think, is that we approach the topic of giftedness with very different professional and cultural prerequisites and very different prior knowledge. And we are probably often not even explicitly aware of these differences. We are certainly aware of our heterogeneity in the field. This is nothing new, but we may not know well enough the points at which we do not understand or even misunderstand each other. And I think it would be very important to have some central questions and to communicate along these lines and really compare our perspectives and answers and try to reach some point of agreement from where to proceed. So therefore, to move the field forward and to address common challenges faced by gifted learners, we don't not only need a platform to exchange like we have now, but some sort of framework or principles or questions in which we can embed our different approaches and the knowledge generated already in research and practice. And for example, during the last years, multiple new models and conceptions of giftedness were developed. And while each of them serves its purpose in the context in which it was developed, this diversity in models and conceptions is a challenge for the field because it impedes understanding and collaboration across research communities and disciplines. And I think it would be very important to really take these conceptions, compare them, work with them, and not just use them in independent sections of our field, but strive for integration. It would be very important to acknowledge and to take into account the evidence that is already out there, but also, and this might be more important, to acknowledge the evidence that is missing. For many points we are already working with in practice, we don't have the evidence we actually need to do this. And much of our knowledge is from weird societies. So Western, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic, and it can't not just taken without further proof and applied to different contexts. So we need integrative reviews, we need meta-analysis, we need international handbooks, specialized journals such as Gifted and Talented International. And we also need to pay attention to connect our research to the broader fields of education, didactics, and psychology, and not to isolate ourselves, because this is always dangerous for a community and not good for its growth. Also, I think we need better textbooks. We have fabulous books on specific topics, creativity, identification, counseling, but we lack a comprehensive textbook that can be used to teach professionals active in the field. So a textbook that covers main topics such as definition of central terms, identification, inter-individual differences, talent development, support options, counseling. And such a book could be developed by a multidisciplinary team, a heterogeneous team that agreed on some basic issues. It would be not an easy project, and it would be nerve-wracking because it's not easy to cooperate crossing disciplines, but it would be so valuable. And we already have a couple of documents, like the Global Principles for Professional Learning and Gifted Education that were published in 2021 by the World Council. And for some fields, such principles could be a starting point or a framework. So to conclude, I think to move the field forward and to address common challenges faced by gifted learners, a common knowledge base and agreed upon terms and definitions would be very helpful, and it would be important to communicate with one voice with the public to really have a strategic advocacy. Yeah.
Very helpful recommendations indeed, Dr. Abdullah. So it seems like we've got many challenges, I would say, especially in the global south. I don't know if you represent the global south here, but as we know that in many countries, especially in the global south, maybe they can see gifted education as a luxury rather than essential, and
Yes.
And also there are such I would say sometimes adoption or imitation, or maybe taking the concept, the Western concept as is, to be implemented in many of the global south. Vice versa, we can see sometimes that Euro and North American, centric position or view that it takes, like the definitions of giftedness as if they are cross-cultural, as they're understood in Europe or in the North America. What are the kind of the challenges when it comes to the definitions, when it comes to the practices in the global south, and how can we, I would say, strengthen this relationship or collaboration between the two regions?
Yeah, it's. I would insist that having good policies in gifted education in our countries or global south is very important issue. But also having these policies are not enough, in my opinion. In many cases, the problem are not the policies or knowing what. The problem is knowing how. The procedures here in many countries around the, what you call it, in the south. As you just mentioned, they copy theories and practices in United States or other countries and try to do the same thing here, which is have different culture, different system, and could not fit with the whole system. So uh, the main issue what we found is knowing how, not just know what. When we go out with the, for example, in our research there, we found that people in charge of gifted education in these countries are fully aware of the needs of these groups. I mean, of the needs of gifted students. Um, but unfortunately, when we go and dig on the data, we found out that students from low-income classes and twice exceptional students are way underrepresentation. Also, even though they know very well about theories and the edge of research about programming, still they do try to do only pull-out programs and summer enrichment programs only. I believe World Council could help in this matter. I believe World Council need to work more to outreach countries by actively participating in local and the regional conferences. World Council also could help in this matter by providing consultations on how to address equity issues. I would also suggest that World Council could provide consultations and help in how to develop culturally responsive programs that take into account the cultural diversity and experiences. One simple way is, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
One simple way we could do that is to encourage members of the World Council to establish collaboration and knowledge sharing procedures. I think there are many opportunities for collaboration and knowledge sharing between the global north and the south. For example, educators and researchers can collaborate on research projects, participate in professional development opportunities, and share resources and best practices. That's all could be done under the umbrella of World Council. It could be also for World Council to provide online professional development opportunities. Um, Also, by addressing these challenges and taking advantage of opportunities for collaboration and knowledge sharing. I suggest that we could capitalize on some of the successful collaboration between North and South, such as global talent mentoring, I believe, which was established a few years ago by Hamdan Foundation in UAE, in cooperation with Regensburg University and Nannerberg University. They try to connect mentors from all over the world with students, gifted students from all over the world, including Africa and disadvantaged students. I believe this can be capitalized on it, and we could work in such examples. Also, I think Dome Maker has some work in this too. Her project could help, especially was applied in China, Taiwan, also in Gulf countries, Lebanon, and other countries. So I think these kind of collaborations and connection, we could capitalize on it.
Right. Thank you very much. If I would like to be a bit specific, James, regarding creativity, I think lots of research on creativity done on the maybe cross-cultural studies on the global South and global North. And I'm sure that there are such different perspectives when it comes to the definition of creativity. So just to be specific, when talking about your own field, so what kind of collaboration in the field of creativity could be done? Let's say, for example, in bridging the gap when it comes to the definitions, characteristics, the types, the kinds, from the two scholars who are coming from different regions, especially the north and the south. So do you think there is something could be done, or maybe has been done to fill such a gap? I think we lost James, right? So I think maybe there's some we lost him for a while. He is going to come back. Until he's going to come back, I think we can move. I can see James now.
There we go. I have no idea what just happened. I would say over the last 10 years, I think creativity's done decently with this. We could certainly always do it better, but there's been a lot of cross-cultural work. There's been a lot of work, particularly on things like implicit beliefs about creativity. And I know there's a number of in the works projects. So there's a project that I'm a part of that is still in the early stages, but where we're developing a team of people across disciplines and all over the world to kind of address some key issues in creativity. It's very early, and it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. It's hard, but it's something that I feel like there's been a decent amount of cross-culture. I think there should be more. I think many of the top creativity journals have a Western bias. I know from a lot of my colleagues who are not from weird countries that often they get back stuff saying, well, how does this generalize to other populations and things like that, which are not, that's not good. And I certainly think I think that could be a place where I would really like to see the field step up a bit, would be in the journals and gatekeepers being more open. I think we're making good strides, but I think we have further to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right. So we'll maybe come to our last theme, which is about your recommendations and aspirations. So actually, in regards to the future endeavors of the WCGTC to further advance gifted education with a focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So Francis, I don't know if you've got some recommendations for our organization, which is your organization, our organization. It's everybody's organization and maybe the top body actually in the field of gifted education. So in order to advance it for all, so what to do?
Okay, another tough question, and actually I don't see myself in the position to just give a general recommendation or formulate an aspiration for the World Council. However, I can offer my own perspective on the field. So I think it would be good to become more active in connecting with the research community in general in education, didactics, and psychology. Not to be too isolated as a field, to try to publish in the general journals, to publish special issues in not specialized journals, special issues about giftedness in general education or didactics or other journals that are involved in this field. It could also be sociology or economics or stuff like this. And also, I think we should be more active to connect with the professions. I'm currently co-editing the new edition of the Cambridge Handbook of Expertise and Expert Performance, and I learned that many professional fields are highly interested in the topic of talent development as it applies to their fields, so in a domain-specific sense. And I think this opens very interesting options for collaboration with potentially high impact in these fields. So this really could be a chance for our community to get involved beyond K-12 education, beyond family and parenting, which is important, but there's more out there. And I think the professions really offer a lot of options. For creativity research, this is naturally done already, but there are other topics: talent development, identification, fostering option, counseling, mentoring. We have expertise that we could offer. And there are many other points, and I think some of them have already been mentioned in our discussions. So these include a strong effort to integrate our knowledge, the clarification of our understanding of basic terms and conceptions, as well as the identifications of points where we don't understand each other. And I suspect, I don't have any evidence, but I suspect there are a lot. And it would be really interesting to just have these 4 questions of Diane Chan and answer them from multiple groups and just put those aside each other and see what we have there. So just like a basic assessment of how we think in the field. We need good research that connects them to main theories and findings in education and psychology. And finally, I really, again, would like to support the point that Dr. Roberts made in her keynote on advocacy, because the topic of giftedness and talent development is easily misunderstood, and again misunderstood as being elitist. And it is important to constantly communicate that this is not the case, but rather that this topic can be like an engine for the general development of potential, which is important in fields like education, the professions, but just also in the field of positive development. So I think it's very important that we really communicate this message constantly. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Abdullah, it's the same question, and again, advancing the organization with the focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So big terms.
Yeah. I would second what Fraznis just said, and also I would suggest to continue building global networks. I really think it's very important that bring together researchers, educators, families, parents, and other professionals who are committed to support gifted students. This could involve increasing collaboration and knowledge sharing between North and South regions, as well as between different regions within these areas. Also, I know that World Council working on this, but I would also recommend that World Council can continue to support research collaboration in the field of gifted education with a focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. The World Council could establish a platform of research exchange. Not just research exchange, we could do also scholars exchange, visits exchange, and maybe matching sabbatical leaves locations. We all know that football, they have like football transfer platform, and we could do something like matchmaker websites. World Council could also develop new resources in these issues, especially in practice, not just when we need to read this to have an impact on the in the field, in the schools and families. We need to provide more resources. So we need to provide videos, podcasts, new programs and materials that takes into account the cultural and the linguistic diversity of gifted children, as well as providing resources and support for parents and families. Also, I would also suggest that establishing a new award for best practice in this issue, and could be changed with the new topics by the time. This would encourage people or countries to focus more on this topic and help others to learn from their experience. And some, I think, by prioritizing equity, diversity, inclusion, building global networks, encouraging research, developing new resources, and advocating for gifted education, we can further advance the field of gifted education and ensure that gifted learners from all backgrounds have the resources and support they need to reach their potential.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Kaufman, I think from your own work, again, on creativity, you found out that creativity promotes inclusion. And it's actually the other face of diversity, and it maintains equity when it comes to inclusion as well. So can you elaborate on this a little bit, please?
Yes. One of a lot of the traits associated with creativity, open to experience, open to intellect, tolerance of ambiguity, being able to not need structure, and these are all also associated with greatly reduced prejudice, less likely to stereotype, and broadly inclusive beliefs. And it's only been the last 5-10 years that these things have really been studied more. I also think, just speaking more broadly, I mean, I love all the stuff that you guys have said. I mean, one of the things I also think it would really lead to, between the mentoring, the new awards, the matchmaking type stuff, would be just to get more professionals in the field who are from underrepresented groups. I mean, particularly creativity has an issue with this, and trying to mentor young professionals as much as possible is something I've tried to do a lot. And I know many of us have, and just trying to, and that sometimes means working with methods that you're not as familiar with, or as you were mentioning, reaching out to adjacent fields. I mean, it's not easy, but it can also be kind of wonderful. I know I will often look through like the poster sections in different conferences, and if I see stuff that seems something of interest to me, related and by a young professional who maybe from an underrepresented group. Sometimes I will try to just reach out and talk about collaboration or things like that. I think that type of trying to be more active with this and to kind of get, again, the gatekeepers to be as flexible as possible.
Thank you very much. So I'll try to highlight maybe one point that maybe it emerged, which is about the practice, research and practice. We do research in order to transform this research into practice, and I think Dr. Abdullah mentioned that maybe one of the recommendations is to establish a new award for professional practice or for practice. So, what do you think, Dr. Preckel, about this? Now, do we the balance between juggling two things, which is research and practice, in our organization? Do you think this is something that should be emphasized? Are they separable, or how can we do that?
Yeah, definitively. I mean, we research to advance the field, and if our findings don't reach the field, or the problems in practice don't reach us in universities, then we have a huge problem. And I think it's not just both of us, research and practice. We need at least a third party in between. So people who really can translate research into practice. It does not happen automatically. You can't just make a product and give it into a school. That won't work at all. And I have very good experiences with strategic research practice partnerships. So over the last 5 years, we closely cooperated with over 40 elementary schools in Germany, and worked on material for formative assessing potential in the STEM field in elementary school. And this was directed towards ability, but also skills, psychosocial skills and personality traits like need for cognition. And this was a very strenuous, challenging project for all parties involved, but the product really pays off. And so we develop material that can be used in the practice, and we wouldn't have done this without the feedback of the teachers. And they wouldn't have done this without our knowledge and methodologies. So I think this is really the way to go, but we need this third party, those people who are able to be like promoters or translators, or like a transfer institution. School psychologists could get into this role, but this is a specific and maybe a new profession.
Right. Thank you very much. I think with a couple of minutes we've got, just one word actually I need to hear from each of you. It's about about what you're going to do, what's your aspiration yourself, whether individual or maybe more. Okay, we'll start with, let's say, James. Anything that you're trying to do, and maybe in the future, the upcoming 5 years, we're gonna hear about.
I want to keep doing work on creativity and positive outcomes. We're so focused in the field on improving creativity, which is a good and valid thing. We sometimes lose track that not everybody is enthusiastic and needs to understand why we should bother.
Thank you. Dr. Abdullah, Aljughaiman.
I would work in the third party that Francis just said. We're working about the third party with my students and the co-researchers. We are working right now in how to translate research findings in practice in schools. Having many PhD students who are already teachers in the schools, they help a lot to transfer this research findings to practice. Also, I think individuals like orphans, low-income students need more attention from us.
Thank you. Dr. Francis Preckel.
Yeah, actually, I will focus on intelligence a little bit more in the future because the reputation intelligence tests have currently in our community is not the best. And I think this is worrisome because to me, these are fabulous tools, but frequently they are used the wrong way or the results are not understood correctly. And we should be very careful not to get rid of some of the most powerful tools we have. So this is something I will be getting engaged on. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the three speakers. Thank you again for Professor James Kaufman, the recipient of the International Creativity Award, Professor Francis Preckel, the recipient of the International Award for Research, and Dr. Abdullah Aljughaiman, the recipient of the Harry Passo International Award for Leadership in Gifted Education. Thank you again for joining us, and I would leave it um, to my colleague now, Tracy, I think, or Denise.
Well, you got me. Thank you very much to our award-winning panel. As the chair of the awards panel for committee for the World Council, I think we made some very good choices. Just wanted to sum up some of my thinking before we go into our closing. I think that our panelists reminded us of the importance of interrelationships, whether that's between people, teachers, researchers, parents, children, whether it's between the concepts of giftedness, our identification, our practices, the characteristics of gifted children, and how those interrelationships underpin our work. And James reminded me of the importance of how we can use the traits of creativity to embrace the challenges of excellence and equity. And I think all of our panelists remind us of the work that we do within the World Council, gave us some good challenges for how we can continue to work together to bring our differences together through our research, through our teaching, through our advocacy, and through collaboration. So a warm thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Anis, for the work that you did to bring the panelists together. And just because I'm online, I want to give a huge shout out to Tyler Clark on behalf of the World Council members and the committee for the work that you've done. Thank you. I'll pass on to Denise, I believe, next. Kia ora.
My dear members, attendees, and colleagues, thank you for attending the 2023 virtual conference of the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children. It was wonderful being with all of you. We had so many opportunities to learn from each other in multiple sessions. The conference provides a variety of opportunities for those from different nations to network with each other in person and share the experience. In person, next conference. I will talk a little bit about that later. I'm very grateful to all of you, keynote speakers, presenters, attendees, and sponsors. I'd like to take this opportunity to share about a few upcoming conferences. First, there will be the Asia Pacific Federation on Giftedness Conference in Japan.
Dear WCGTC 2023 attendees and participants, on behalf of the conference planning team, as the chair, I'd like to express our gratitude for the opportunity to host the 18th Asia Pacific Conference on Giftedness in August 2024. The event will be held for the first time in Japan, a perfect time to further raise awareness and interest in gifted education, which has been gaining momentum recently. The conference is also an excellent opportunity to introduce to international visitors to the current trends and uniqueness in Japanese education for the gifted and talented, such as super science high schools.
The conference will take place in the beautiful seaside city of Takamatsu, located in Shikoku, the smallest of the Japanese main islands. The city boasts good facilities for international conferences and has plenty of local delicacies and traditional culture for visitors, but is often not on travel itineraries. So even those who have visited Japan before likely has not experienced Takamatsu.
The conference will be hosted in cooperation between 3 universities, Ehime University, Kobe University, and Kagawa University. The theme of the conference will be Educational Environments for Transforming Gifted Minds, Lives, and Communities. We invite the participants to share their visions of what open, united, and transformational gifted educational environments for facing challenging times can be.
The main part of Youth Summit will take place in Shodoshima Island, where the participants will take a ferry ride through the stunning coastline and conduct field work in a beautiful natural environment. The goal is to learn about connectedness of the local environment to the global issues and thus help pave way for a sustainable and equitable future.
Our organization team is looking forward to seeing you all in Japan.
Next, I would like to share about the upcoming European Council for High Ability Conference in Greece. Thanks to the Asia Pacific Federation of Giftedness and the European Council for High Ability for shared videos about their conference. I'm sure the conference will be great learning opportunities. Now, I am very, very happy to announce the 2025 Conference of the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children will be back in a face-to-face format. I am very excited. I would like to introduce Dr. Sara Bahia from the University of Lisbon to announce the next World Council for Gifted and Talented Children Conference.
Thank you very much, Denise. It's a pleasure. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are. The 2025 World Conference will be take place from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August of 2025 under the theme of the power of gifted education and talent development in a changing world. And will be held in a country known for its climate of tolerance and willingness to welcome others. We have a tradition of inclusive education that led 25 years ago to the foundation of the National Association for the Study and Intervention in Giftedness that will organize the conference. We will ally open-mindedness, a rich culture, history, gastronomy, wine, beautiful landscapes, sun, and creativity, and give you an unforgettable experience of this creative nation that drove our ancestors to explore the Atlantic and Indic Oceans and invent the caravel, the Nordic astrolabe, and many other gadgets. We are proud also to be one of the safest countries in the world with a very low crime rate and also a very, very tolerant and progressive nation. One of the first countries, in fact, to abolish death penalty and slavery. We have been a country of many diverse cultures for hundreds of years and are seen as truly multicultural country, as a truly multicultural country. We are speaking of Portugal and its amazing city of Braga, a city of Roman origin in the north of Portugal, known for its Baroque heritage and creative and innovative nature, where knowledge and culture will be for this conference at a walking distance. This is where we will discuss and reflect on the power of gifted education and talented development in a changing world. Bom dia, boa tarde, and boa noite, and I hope to see you all in Portugal, in Braga, in 2025.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Hroub. I am the mayor of the city of Braga, and we are very proud of having the opportunity to host the World Congress of the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children in 2025. We look forward on providing you an amazing experience in this city of Braga, full of history, innovation, and very energetic, and at the same time to learn from all your experiences in an area that is a huge priority for us, to be an inclusive city that invests in education to foster the talent of our population and to have a more sustainable growth for the future.
Please save the dates and join us in Portugal. I hope you mark your calendar to be with your international colleagues from July 29 to August 2nd, 2025. In Braga, a beautiful city in the north regions of Portugal. We now reaching the end of this conference. I would like to thank you, Dr. Tyler Clark, for planning this conference so well, for all his support and outstanding work as the Executive Administrator of the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children. My appreciation to the members from the executive community for their partnership, support, and commitment to the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children. Many thanks to the SpotMe team for their technological support. Once more, thanks to the World Council members for their support and trust. Your work has made a difference in the lives of gifted children worldwide. I declare the 2023 Virtual World Conference closed. Thank you very much and see you in Braga. I wish you all the best. Thank you.